Salvete. We are back for three more pronouns, some real important ones. We got the determinative pronoun, which just really means the same. Okay, it's idem, the same. Now this pronoun, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, this looks very similar to the demonstrative pronoun is, ea, id, and it is. It's identical to is, ea, id, except they've stuck the ending dem on there, and that dem makes it mean the same thing, or the same man, or the same woman, depending on the gender. So there's a couple spelling changes right at the beginning. Instead of is dem, the s drops out, and so it's just idem. Same thing with the neuter over here. Anytime there's a letter that doesn't really flow real well, sounds easier to say idem than isdem. Also, you notice eundem. Normally that would be an m in the accusative singular, but it's eundem and eyandem. But other than that, it's pretty much is, ea, id with just dem stuck on the end of it, and it means the same. If you wanted to say this at the same time, you would say eodem tempore. Eodem tempore. Tempus is neuter. If you want to say at the same hour, you'd say eadem ora. Eadem ora. On the same day. Eodem die. Eodem die. And you can use it, to denote people. It can be used with a noun or by itself. You could say the same man. He is the same man, who built the Arch of Titus or something. You could say, idem vir est, qui arcum titi aedificat. Idem vir, or eadem femina. So it just means the same, and that's the determinative pronoun idem. Let's take a look at the next page, and we're going to look at the relative pronoun, one of the most important ones. And we use this in class all the time. I'll give you some examples here. All the time when we want to describe someone, we can use the relative pronoun. You could say, Caecilius est vir. Qui, who, qui Romae habitabat. Actually, I guess he lived in Pompeii, but okay, sorry, you get the idea here. Caecilius is a man, qui, who lived in Rome, or at Rome. So, qui is, we use this form because Caecilius is masculine, so we use a masculine, qui. In this little clause right here, call this a relative clause. It's a part of the sentence. This is really the main part of the sentence. Caecilius is a man. But then this part of the sentence describes Caecilius, and you do it with a relative pronoun. So, Caecilius is a man who lived in Rome. Qui, since he is the one that's doing the living, then you got to use a nominative form, which is the qui form, see? And since Caecilius is singular, of course, you use singular, you don't use the plural, although the plural is exactly the same in this case. So Caecilius is a man who lived in Rome. Let me show you a couple other examples here. What if you had something like this? Est puella. This is the girl, okay? Quam Caesar amat. Okay? So, this is the girl, is the main part of the sentence. You have the main verb in this, and then we have this relative clause that describes the girl. Quam, this is the girl whom Caesar loves. Okay? Sorry, I'll zoom out here a little bit. This is the girl whom Caesar loves. Now, in this case, quam has to be feminine because girl is feminine. Quam is singular because girl is singular. And quam here is not nominative, it's accusative, because in this little clause here, Caesar is the subject, amat is the verb, and quam is the person that he is loving. It's receiving the action. So it has to be accusative. So it's got to be accusative, singular, feminine. Okay, so if you look on our little chart here, accusative, feminine, singular, quam. See how that works? So you got to use the case that the relative clause, this little phrase, requires. And of course this whole clause is describing this girl, and that's why we chose this particular pronoun. I'll do one more. You can kind of see this, how this is working here. Est puer. This is the boy. Okay, there's my main sentence. Qui quintus donum dat. So this whole thing is a relative clause because it started with this relative pronoun. This is the boy. Cui is dative. It's singular because boy is singular. It's referring to this boy. And it's masculine because boy is masculine. This is the boy, dative, to whom Quintus, he's the subject, gives present. That's the accusative. So we got nominative, accusative, verb, and now this is the dative over here. Okay? So the reason why it has to be dative is because in this clause, Quintus is giving a gift to him, so I got to use the dative, and it's got to be singular, and it's got to be masculine because puer is masculine and singular. So when we look on our little chart here, the dative, masculine, singular is cui. Notice cui is also feminine and neuter. It happens to be the same, but that's just how it is. So when you're looking at this chart here, let me zoom in a little bit. You'll notice there's a lot of similarities in the spellings. You got this e-use thing going on in the genitive. You got just lending in an I in the dative, like all those other pronouns. Many pronouns end in these forms. And then other than that, you have a lot of conventions that are similar for all the cases. You know, ending in M in the accusative singular, vowels in the ablative, and then these are just like first and second declension, no differences. Except for the quibus, that looks like a third declension, right? Ibus, ibus. But that should be kind of familiar to you. Now, with using the relative pronoun, especially in Caesar, you're going to see that you don't always translate it who or what. There are going to be times that you translate it as this or that. And let me explain why. Go ahead and take a look at these examples they give you. This is some good stuff here. Right here it says, notice again the use of the connecting relative. Okay, so here's the relative pronoun, quorum. It says, then the messengers spoke, dende nuntii locuti sunt, quorum verbis ob stupefactus. It says, stunned ob stupefactus, by their words, or the words of whom. Okay, the words of, what it means is the words of those whom, you know, had said them. Okay, by their words, quorum, the words of them. Notice I didn't translate it. Of whom doesn't sound as good. It's of them. Okay, the king was silent for a long time. Now that's what's going on here is explained a little better down here. What happened is they will have a demonstrative pronoun that's there before the relative. Okay, but sometimes you can just take out this demonstrative pronoun. So look at these examples. Id qui illam fabulam narravit mentebatur. He who told the story was lying. Okay. Ei qui fugerunt nox capientur. They who had fled will soon be captured. Okay, so you have the demonstrative pronoun, then a relative. And id quod nuntius dixit nos maxime perturbavit. This or that which the messenger said disturbed us greatly. But then see down here, you can just take it out. Qui te heri culpeba is te hodie laudat. This is really is qui te heri culpeba. He who was blaming you yesterday. But they just took out the demonstrative. And for these examples, they do the same. I'm going to pick it up in the next podcast just to finish it.